Sweet.
Are we up?
I think we are.
I don't see it. You see it on your end?
Yeah, I do.
Aw. Oh, I feel very left out. Oh no, I see it.
Yep. Alvin says he sees us,
All right.
hear us.
What's up?
Looks good from here. Must be my screen.
Cool. Well, then let's just jump on in. I want to see it. I want to see comment. I want to see questions. Oh, there we go. I see it on my phone.
Here must be my screen.
Turn that down. Close that. All right, cool. What's up, everybody? We are just gonna kind of hang out. It's a very casual sort of hangout. We're gonna be working on different projects we're currently doing, and we're gonna answer any questions you guys may have. Something you're working on, or something you've wondered, whether it be a project you're working on, something we've done in the past, or just a technical design question, whether it be After Effects or Cinema or Photoshop, or something like that. So then we'll just try to fill those questions, and we'll just kind of mess around with it. This is sort of, we got to try a new system here. This stream is brought to you by Stage10.tv. We're not getting paid for that. But let me add that cute little lower third I had so people know what we're doing. Where'd it go? We're such professionals. So if you have any questions or anything, start throwing anything out there, whether it be something we're doing, something you're working on, Easter. If you have questions about live streaming, I'm not the person to ask.
Yeah, man. who people that do this for a living? I mean, it was complicated for us to kind of get this set up. I mean, we tried like 3 different kinds.
Yeah.
Sort of settled on this one because it kind of works. But this is like, I'm sure for a lot of people, this is a new world for a lot of people. So we feel your pain, and we're just doing, something super simple.
Yep. It took us all day just to find a good program that we could use where we both could stream, both could share, not pay a fortune. And this is so far so good. The quality was good. Man, I had a cute little lower third I put up there. Now I don't know where I put it. Find it. So Pedro, what you working on?
Yeah, I had a couple of thoughts of kind of some things that you can maybe do that kind of can keep your live stream sort of engaged. Um, the first thing that I wanted to show is I did this for a client a while back, and just a super simple way of like sort of showing, like user sent videos, right? Like this is my cute little daughter here. My wife loves to do these sort of boomerang type things, and I just thought it was an interesting way of like, because it's never easy to sort of take people's iPhone footage or phone footage and sort of turning it into something that's sort of pleasing to the eye. And I came across this, and I did it for a client at one point in time, and I thought it was really neat. How you can kind of just, there are a lot of these like mock-ups online that you can kind of pull from, and you can kind of just throw some footage in there, and it's like a little bit better, other than just being, if we were to sort of kind of take this away here, and like if you were just to throw your footage in here, like that's just kind of you know, it's pretty crummy, right? Um, and like, how do you make this sort of visually pleasing and not be something that's kind of bland? So a really cool way that I sort of came across and did it for somebody was this, right? And the fun part is that you kind of don't necessarily really need After Effects to do anything like this. You know, this is all, you know, essentially everything inside of Premiere, as long as you have like the right assets. And I sort of wanted to show like how I sort of put this together, you know, and how you can kind of do this inside of Premiere.
Whoops. Sorry, I missed it. You're okay.
Good over there?
Yeah, I just switched my screen. Newbie over
Gotcha.
here.
Yeah, so let me just kind of explain really quick, and like maybe this can kind of be where we start off with, and yeah, we go from there. So like basically the assets that I had were sort of this, you know, kind of TIFF or JPEG, right? That's, you know, basically you know, empty, nothing in there. It's just kind of a device slash phone in here, right? And then we also have a matte, which it looks like this. And for those that don't understand what a matte is, there are two different kinds. There's an alpha matte and there's a luma matte. A luma matte is basically, you know, white and black values, right? And you can tell whatever software, whether it's Premiere, After Effects, or Photoshop, to pick yellow or pick white and tell that to be visible, right? So in this case over here, you would see like, you know, anything black would be not there, and everything white would be visible. So let me kind of just delete all of this, and I can kind of show you what I did, right? So I have this, let's see, keep existing. I have this piece of footage here. And let's scale this to size. And first thing you got to do is basically nest this. It's like, you know, basically either grouping it or, you know, kind of creating a pre-comp. But this is inside of Premiere. So since you have that, kind of bring that on top. So you see on my timeline here. Woo! Look at that. It's basically there, right? And then you would bring your background, put it underneath, and then you can kind of put your matte in your timeline as well. So it's kind of like this. Doesn't really make any sense. So, but first let's do something here. On your nested sequence, you want to kind of search for an effect called Set Matte, and kind of just throw that on top. And then inside of your effects controls, you'll see right over here, like all of this stuff, right? So right now it's telling you to look at video 2 and an alpha channel of that. And in our case, we really want to look at video 3. So we're going to change it to video 3 and then choose luminance. Because like I said before, it's like white and black values. So you can, like right away, you can see that the video is in there inside of the phone. Right? I guess the only thing here is that you have a little bit of a scaling issue. Like you want to be able to kind of go in here and sort of scale it down so it fits properly. And then if you were to do this on this side, and you can notice that like it'll basically scale everything down, which it kind of doesn't make any sense. But that's why we sort of created a nested sequence that we can kind of then go in here and sort of scale it down. And then what I like to do is sort of throw the background on here and just like turn the opacity down just so I see just as a dummy. Let's see here, select. And then now you can kind of scale it down to make it fit accordingly to where you want. And then I would basically make this turn it off over here and then go back to our main sequence. And now you have this kind of video playing inside. But like my church kind of did the same thing. Like they were in their live stream this past Sunday, they were doing this whole like, hey, here's our church staff. We're so glad that you joined us. We are in the comfort of our own home, sort of like practicing social distancing or whatever. But it was that what kind of gave me this idea is that the way that they did it, it was just sort of like straight out of whatever they captured it from, whether it was from their laptop or their front camera on their phones. And it sort of worked. It kind of showed that they were actually sort of self-distancing, right? But I just thought, like, with something like this, kind of it would be a new way, a more fun way to sort of kind of display that type of scenario, right? And then on this screen, you could essentially like put your logo in here, maybe some other messaging, or it could just be like a heartfelt piece of like, what if you ask your congregation to be like, hey, send us videos of what you're doing, and how you're coping with, being at home, sort of, in this whole time that we were kind of just locked up,
Yeah. I dig it. And that's all in Premiere.
Yeah, and this is all in Premiere. So if you, let's see.
I wonder if it would help while we're in this process, if these little things pop up like this, if we saved these as some sort of asset of some sort and maybe post a link. Do you think we can do that just in case people are like, oh, I need something like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So maybe we can just hold on to some of these. We'll throw a big Dropbox link or something into it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to sort of share today.
Yeah.
Super simple, throw some music on it. Could be fun, quirky. But yeah, man.
And you could stick some text and stuff on the side or whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get so scared of After Effects and they feel more comfortable in Premiere, so having something that looks like it came from After Effects is probably ideal.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So Alvin mentioned a question. Let me pull it up. We'll come back to Jason here in a bit. He says, like, life after Easter, like what our church is going to do, what's the kind of the theme, like a common theme, what are people going after? If you have thoughts on what your church is doing, whether it's a sermon series already planned out, or if it, are you shifting gears from where you were originally? I think that's a valid point. So if anybody has any sermon series ideas or something they're going to be doing after Easter, go ahead and post that as well. What we created, we kind of hit this scramble time too, where we're like, what can we create that is somewhat relevant and that people need at the moment? And so we posted last week. I feel like it's a pretty solid theme if you're not really sure where to go. Let me pull it up really quick here. And I've seen it a lot. And I mean, from people posting things on just their own little designs, or Pro Church Media did a pretty cool thing on it a couple weeks ago. Let me switch to my screen here, and go back to this. So we did the Faith Over Fear. We quickly kind of created this for folks to use. I probably won't play through this just because it can maybe get kind of laggy and whatnot. But basically, it's just this preacher talking about fear and how we put faith in front of it. The closer you are to God, the farther away fear is. So it goes through this whole little spiel, and it has a kinetic type of pretty much every word, like word by word of what he says, then ends with the logo. And there's pictures interchangeable. If you wanted to put, pictures of the stuff around the pandemic or whatever, it could be pretty cool. And then there's a short version that doesn't have the guy talking. It's just a sort of a prayer about, give us belief over this and this over that. And then ultimately faith over fear. So we worked this one up to get out to you. So not sure if you've been able to grab that or not, but I feel like that's a pretty decent theme to go after. Somewhere in that vicinity, like for instance, I have a this big Revelation series that I'm going to release in the next maybe month or so, but it didn't. It was supposed to come out this month, but doesn't. It's a little bit doom and gloom. So I think we've had enough doom and gloom for a bit. So it's a cool series. It's got a lot of cool stuff going on, but
it is pretty epic. Just the
epic.
score alone is incredible.
I'll show you little snippets of it without showing the video because it's pretty cool. But we were hired. We do contract work as well, so we were hired to do a series on it. Let me see if I can find it. What was it called? Look at there.
Yeah, it looks like John Robinson's saying that they're doing a church-wide series on prayer. Seems kind of like that might be the, sort of the theme kind of going forward. Just relying on prayer on like sort of uncertain times and faith over fear. And
yeah, another good one. So we have a prayer one too. And I'm trying not to make it like here's our store because you know what we do. But the prayer series is one of my favorites as well. It kind of has the same theme with a pastor talking. It goes through a prayer thing, which is pretty cool. As well, another good one that I thought would work as well was Church Defined, because it's basically saying we're not, the church is not the building, and we've had to prove that these past couple of weeks. And so we made like a quarantined edition where it changed the words a little bit. It says every Sunday we did gather, we call this church, but things have changed recently. So that's an extra little video export in that project. But let's talk about Revelations really quick. So I'll show you some snippets because I get super excited about it. Once I find the Revelation. After Effects. Somewhere over here. I don't think my audio's coming through, but I'm not going to go into too much of that. So I'm not going to show you everything, but there's this, John's on the island of Patmos and does this whole 3D thing. Oh, spilling my beans here. Talks about all the letters he wrote, and then it shows these cool little map. The theme they wanted to go towards was the man in the high castle, so I tried to mimic that a little bit. So it's pretty epic. It gets in these crazy scenes with scrolls and the horns and the menorah, and it was a task for sure.
Man, that looks like the dragon scene on Game of Thrones the last season or something like that. It's just super moody, flying through some clouds and some...
Yeah, so it's pretty fun. So I'm looking forward to packaging that one up and getting it out there. But I don't think anybody wants to talk about the end times anymore right now. So we're going to hold on to that one.
That's hilarious.
I thought someone else had someone was talking about, where did it go? Oh, Jason was asking about, he's basically saying he has a meeting tonight with his team to talk about Easter, but they have no idea what they're doing for Easter. He does design, social media, media manager, live stream technician. Bless your heart, Jason. So I'm not sure what your question is. I guess maybe how do you navigate that? The hard thing is, I don't know anything about the church or anything like that, but the hard thing is trying to give people a realistic expectation of what goes into design, rendering and all that kind of stuff, exporting all these images and putting them on Facebook and Instagram. People say a lot like, oh, can you make a video for us? It shouldn't take you too long or whatever. It's like you have no idea. So, giving them some real expectations of that would be helpful. I know that's probably not a really helpful answer, but also don't just come with a problem. Come with a solution. Say, hey, here's what we have time for. Here's this, and this is what I can do and what I can't. And so hopefully they are in it with you, and you're not just like sitting back and complaining about all this work you have to do. So that may not have been a great answer for you, but
no, I think a lot of people sort of just take a little bit for granted on how important some of these things are, right? And it's really, yeah, the whole time thing. I mean, I get a lot of people like, yeah, can you just like design a logo and do a video in like 2 days? I'm just like, well, like if you want something a little bit more polished, like you might want to, reconsider that a little bit. But yeah, it should be, and especially now, like I feel like sort of the outward facing, brand or even look of your church, like whether it's your sermons and your sort of bulletins and handouts and social media now. I mean, TikTok, like what, like we have to do that now.
Yeah, I don't even know what a TikTok is, but
I know. So it's just it's just one of those things that like you have to be sort of proactive and really jumping in on these things, and you gotta throw stuff out there that will sort of relate to people and get people's attention.
Yeah, it's like if you gave me 3 weeks, I could get you this. If you gave me 1 week, I can get you this. But now I have 3 days, and this is your option.
Yeah.
Daryl was asking about a communion bumper. We do not have one. We should do that. I'm gonna make a note of that.
Looks like Miles asked when was Pixel Preacher launched? I guess like
March
3 years ago.
March of 2016, I think. March 1st, 2016.
Yeah.
So we just passed our birthday. He's also asking about a creative process for getting through a project. So for me, let me see if I can pull up a couple of things. So I usually start with the idea. It may just be like a sticky note or something, and let's say we're going to do a series on, let's take the Faith Over Fear one. I knew that's the overall theme, and then I would start looking. I knew the kind of tone I would want to go for. Start looking for music. Just to really, that kind of gives me an extra boost of creativity. Is once I find that piece of music, I'm like, okay, I can visualize it. I can see it a little bit, and so we use Soundstripe for our stuff, and so I would go find the piece of music, and I spend probably 3 hours at least trying to find a good piece of music. So I'd start with Premiere, open up Premiere, and I'd piece together the voiceover of the pastor, and then have that music playing over. If it didn't work, I'd skip to the next song. Once I found it, take that down. I want to make it within a minute or so. So I typically will block out stuff in Premiere. Hopefully this will open up in a minute.
Yeah, I've with Soundstripe, it's great because you can I'll sort of search by mood and some other sort of tag words on there, and they kind of just shoot out a big list, a playlist really. So what I've done in the past is sort of, I kind of type those in and I just play while I'm working to sort of see what catches my ear. Mm-hmm. Even if I'm not, so say I'm thinking about a specific series that I want to work on, and I sort of know some key points of it, and like I want it to be this sort of playful and fun, and then I'll just play. I'll hit play because it continues to go to the next song, almost like you're listening to Spotify or iTunes or something like that.
Yep.
And usually I'll do that, and if something catches my ear, I'll go ahead and start create a playlist and start throwing things in there to then later on kind of come back and see and play those selected ones that I found to see if that even pushes me even more to say I think this song is probably going to fit.
Have you used the Soundstripe extension yet in Premiere?
No.
It's pretty sweet. You go to extensions, Soundstripe. You have to install it or whatever, but it puts it right here, and then you download it. It drops it into your project right away, versus having to go to your downloads folder or whatever. So it's
that's
pretty
great.
cool. So if I was gonna do this, I would maybe mute my music. I don't know. Is my sound? I don't know if my sound is coming through or not. But
it's not.
Yeah.
You might want to tick on desktop audio or something.
I did. Well. Oh well, it's okay. I don't really need sound, but basically I'd play this out. As far as going back to Miles' question, I would play this out, find the music I want, drag it in here, cut it down to the piece I want, and now I could, for certain projects, I would just drop in little text placeholders. So you make a little legacy title and then say like, this is where the text is going to be. This one's a little different since it is, text one, whatever. This one's a little bit different, but I would sort of build up my scene here. So in my head, I would say, all right, text one's here, and I'm going to, slow dolly in on whatever photos.
Yeah, you're kind of building out a text animatic.
Yeah, like a little storyboard, yeah. And then I would put that in here, drop it in. So, when I'm watching it back, it would, and then I would cut it here, add another one. So then I would export this, bring that into After Effects, and use that as sort of my storyboard. Especially when it comes to Cinema 4D, where we're making these long scenes, mainly for that Revelation one, where, the render was taking forever, and I was like, I need 4 seconds of this scene.
Yeah.
And that little storyboard would tell me right here I need those 4 seconds to start. So once I get that exported out of Premiere, usually bring that into After Effects and then start building that way for my typical series. Sometimes it starts with a design, but I need to kind of know where the video is going to go before I design sometimes. So,
yeah.
But as far as that goes, we break down our Photoshop stuff. Let me bring this over here. Oh, I don't have it open. Let's see. We build all of our stuff out in a this one back up here, project files, Photoshop files, and social. So we'll build our projects in artboard format. So you're 16 by 9 square and story version. And that's kind of it. Then anything that I'm putting in After Effects that is a plugin that people might need, I typically just export that out as a separate file so they don't need any plugins for the project. So,
cool.
Yeah. I don't know if that
what you got going on over here?
This so I'm working on, because I've someone, I don't remember who it was, made a comment about needing, I was asking like youth pastor questions, like what do you need as far as what do youth pastors need, and he was saying that our online package was good, but it's a little yeet, which is I guess what the kids are saying these days.
What is yeet?
I don't know what that means, but I'm guessing that's not something that it's not a good word, so they wouldn't use it because it leans towards an older audience, and so let's see. Online. So I'm working on a student package to help with that, but I'm in my mid 30s and not sure what's hip these days. So I'm building some stuff for social media, maybe turn it into like a brand thing. But this is just some story images and Instagram images for Zoom Hangouts. Maybe if they're doing like a daily devotional kind of thing, I'll turn all this text off, but little devotional thing here. This can be used for whatever. So announcing, maybe a contest or a challenge or whatever kids are doing these days. A weekly schedule option down here, and then this Sunday's coming, which I feel like looks kind of cool.
Got a question from John Maloney.
Oh,
he says, is there a software that you guys don't know and want to learn? There are a lot of. I'll go ahead and answer this one.
Yep.
I think so. On the designer scale, Procreate seems like a really sweet iPad app, and I think they are just now. I think they just released an animation side of Procreate, which could be really powerful. I mean, I see all this stuff online with like a lot of like sort of 2D animation type of thing, like almost like old days of Flash. Mm-hmm. And I think that could be a good way to sort of like doodle your way into kind of creating things like that. And I also love the idea of being able to sit somewhere else with an iPad and a pencil and just like kind of start creating, and then if that turns into something good, and then I can like animate from that, which would be really cool. On the 3D side, probably there's a software called Houdini that is probably out of my intelligence cap. Like, so anything that you see on movies that are like explosions or water simulations or anything like that is most likely done in Houdini. It's just like this crazy 3D application. I don't know where this would sort of fit in like the church realm, but it would be really sweet to just like. It seems like it's one of those softwares that if you know it, that if you have a vision on creating something, like you could do it there. You know, whether it's like I thought about doing something with Moses and like parting the Red Sea or whatever, and like creating water simulations and anything. It's just it's unless you're a big studio with like super powerful machines and like a lot of storage, it's almost kind of impossible. And so I always thought like, well, wouldn't it be cool if you could do something like that? And like an application like Houdini would be one of those. But that's like kind of it's what I open it and then I close it immediately because I just get scared of it. But that's one of those applications that I probably would. But probably for like a obtainable or like a plausible sort of goal for me would be more like Procreate, and then it was also incentivize me to actually buy an iPad that I could use. But yeah, those are my two thoughts.
Yeah, there's some dudes out there that just do a lot of the hand lettering, which I thought about getting into that, but for one, I write like a second grader, and the other is it's such customized text that it doesn't really work for like Pixel Preacher type stuff because you can't really edit it. Right. But just learning, like the animation side would be super cool. I'm terrible at Illustrator. Like I know the very basics and can get around enough to like image trace and make EPS things and do some simple logos, but there's so much that I just kind of avoid it.
Illustrator for me is like if I want to sort of create grid looking things, if I want to like duplicate a bunch of squares and kind of like put them in a little grid, I feel like Illustrator is good for that for me, but yeah, everything else is just After Effects and Photoshop and Cinema for sure.
Yep, EPS things. That's what they're called. I feel like. Oh, so anyways, you were asking about what I was working on, and it's. I'm not very good at this kind of like stuff whatsoever, but it's got music to it, but you probably can't hear it. So it's like a little countdown.
Yeah, I love the colors in the back.
So it'll go into a.
Whoa, that's trippy.
Right there, it'll go into the actual like, hey, welcome to, our service starts soon, something like that.
I love it.
Whatever that text is. So, yeah, I found this is just an unsplash photo, but just added a turbulent displace to it. To give it that, since it looks like it's already turbulent displaced by turbulence, then it kind of works. It almost looks realistic, like it's a paint video.
Very cool.
Yeah. Another thing I thought we could mess around with would be, and let me know if you want to take over anything, Pedro, on your screen. But like, I was trying to figure out what churches like need. And that
I can kind of take over a little bit.
Okay, because I was gonna mess around with like logo animation and kind of talk about the process to get, your logo actually animated, even if it's super simple. But
maybe while you get set up, I can kind of just go over some of the things that I was doing here. I was like before sort of the peak of this whole staying at home thing kind of came along. We went ahead and released like live stream graphics, and I just wanted to sort of show like how kind of easy it would be, even with some of the stuff that we may have, that we can you can kind of create your whole like welcome, we're glad you're here kind of title screens and title graphics. And so I just wanted to sort of like show you that a little bit on kind of this. Hey now. So what I did here is I just simply took this loop animation that we have. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Whoop, hey now.
Remember that.
Let's see. Yeah, so we have this loop animation here. It's kind of wobbly, some, ridge, flow. I don't know. Naming these things is like a talent, and I'm not good at them. So it's really, I was kind of thinking, how can you get some of that stuff and then just sort of create something on top that, you can have it in your live stream, right? So, so basically I brought it into Photoshop here, just mainly as a way to like visualize what you want. Obviously you can kind of do this in After Effects or anything else, but I feel like a lot of people are more comfortable maybe in Photoshop. So you could essentially, let's just kind of do from scratch here. I'm just going to create a dummy 1920 by 1080 Photoshop file here, and then you just really kind of just drag and drop your video in here, and you can kind of go to window timeline to kind of get this dock down here and just create a video timeline, and now you have literally your entire video here. So really what I do is just kind of do Command A, select it, and then just bring it into its own deal here, which is basically what I did here. Just mainly so you can like visualize and kind of maybe create your text inside of here. So I just basically came in here, added, first I added like Church Online, kind of big bold text, and then welcome, and a little drop shadow, right? So this could be anything like, church is about to start, or I did this one down here, live stream will begin shortly. Kind of begin shortly seems a little too transparent, but you kind of get my drift. And then and then if you wanted to, essentially you could when you go to export this stuff out, you can maybe just export this as a PNG and then bring it into Premiere, drop in your loop on there. As a matter of fact, why don't we do that right now? Let's see. So we got this guy here. Man, doing this stuff on the fly, it is so tough. Alright, so let's do this. So we got our text, right? I'm going to export this as a PNG. Whoopsies. Oh boy. Oh boy. I'm doing something wrong here. Hang on a second. Alright, assets. Let's go in here. Right, so let me pull up Premiere. And then we'll bring in what we just did. So we have our text with an alpha, and then let's bring in that loop footage. We can go and use sequence from clip. So now we have our loop here, right? And then just basically bring that in. Now you got yourself a little nice sort of intro, intro title graphic that you can use at the beginning of your live stream. You know what I mean? Just like super easy things like that you can kind of just like elevate your, your streams and your online stuff that you're doing. But yeah.
Nice. I don't think I've ever. Did you go? I was looking at the Facebook thing. Did you go? I can't remember. My screen's super small. Did you go like straight to? Is that a Photoshop file inside of Premiere, or did you just drop the alpha-matted text on top?
Yeah, so I exported just the text from Photoshop just as a PNG. You could do it as well as just like a a Photoshop file as well, as long as there's nothing on the back, right? Like it needs to be transparent.
Yeah, I didn't know if you somehow dropped the whole thing in there that started animating the Photoshop file because it's a video file. But just curious.
Well, I think I was showing on here on Photoshop, you have a timeline in Photoshop, which is there's actually a lot of people that do sort of like the 2D cell animation type of thing inside of Photoshop, like sort of like a frame by frame type of thing. So yeah, you have like a full like timeline capabilities inside of Photoshop as of like a couple years now.
Yeah.
So I just dropped this in here just so I could kind of grab a nice frame that I could then, easily kind of mock something up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I have another one here. Like I just basically dropped this other one that I had. But yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's what I got, man.
Right on. All right, so let's move on. We got I did a posted it not too long ago. Let me throw this over here and hit this. There we go. Posted this a couple weeks ago of a logo that I was asked to animate, and so a guy I used to work with works at a church in Texas, and his church was they were needing the kids logo thing, so this was their logo, and so I needed to animate it and make it fly around. So this is a much more complicated than what most. If you're a church pastor or something, you just want a logo animation, and you're not going to want to go through all this trouble. But I feel like there's at least a sort of a process that I follow to at least get it here, to make it super scalable and all that good stuff. Because people will send you like a low res PNG or something, and I can't do anything with that. So let me make a composition. But if you have, we do like 20, I feel like if you can get over the scariness of After Effects sometimes, then you can make some pretty simple stuff that makes your church look pretty good. So like we do that little church online bumper thing, and you can drop your logo in and it'll animate it by itself. So, but you would want to get, if you're going to be animating a logo, ideally you would get some sort of EPS file that is a bit layered. So let me go into, but this one was a bit of a mess. Assets, EPS layers, no. This one here. It had all these little lines and stuff on it, and it wasn't really organized very well, and so I had to sort of break apart and go by line and separate all these little pieces out, and I think it ended up just keeping it pretty basic. But you're gonna want some sort of EPS file. I wish I had something simpler. I was hoping someone would send me a logo of some sort. Maybe they will, but it's pretty organized in this sense. But all these little lines in here were just a bunch of little pieces. So I had to sort of go in. I tried to drop it into After Effects, and it would work, but this one's just a little bit different in the fact that it had all these little pieces on it, so I wanted to bring those apart. And when you bring in an After Effects logo, so for instance, if I were to, maybe this is it here, drop this is the EPS file, drop it in, so my head's not blocking too much, and switch to this. Nope. Oh, hang on. There we go. this is the EPS file, but typically what I would do is turn the EPS file into shape layers, which is a simple After Effects little thing. So, but you need it to be EPS file or maybe a Illustrator file. But basically, you just right click on it and say create. Create shapes from vector layer, and so you do that, and it breaks it apart into a bunch of little pieces. And now those pieces are shape layers, so that means you can scale it up and scale it down, and make it nice and crisp. So I would do that. Let me see if I can find what I ended up doing. So basically just broke that thing apart into these circle, like all the little colors basically. And then let's see what I do from here. I love that I can hear your daughter yelling. Could be my kids. I don't know.
No, she's it's nap time right now, so my wife is trying to put her down. It's she's got pipes.
Yeah. So for this, I had, for instance, this just one little pink layer. I added a circle matte, which is just an effect on it that is a radio wipe. So I would make, like you were talking about track mats and stuff earlier.
Yeah.
Let me mess around with that for a second to explain what that means to people that may not know. Let's see. So for instance, if I had an image in here, I'll just drop in some picture of something. Let's just take this. Drop this in here, and I wanted to use a track matte. So an alpha matte is basically just going to take the whatever is on top of it, so I'll make like a new solid, and we'll make it. It can be red for now. It doesn't matter if I do alpha matte. But then I just draw like a mask over this thing. So with your matte, you want your matte on top of it. Then you go to your the thing you want to keep on the screen, but kind of have a cutout, sort of a die cut thing. Then you click on this little toggle switches and modes. Go to track matte, none, and alpha. And so alpha is going to select whatever that piece is. The inverted version of that will be the opposite. But the alpha matte needs to be white. Basically, whatever is white will show up, and whatever is black will not. And the same thing with the inverted. So basically, I just did that with the wipe. I had a white circle kind of going around, wiping those little lines on all throughout here. See them kind of one at a time. And here it's very, rigid and not a whole lot going on, but I wanted to feel a little bit more organic. And so I would take all of this stuff, this Trails composition, and drop that into another composition and be Trails and Rocket. So then I would add, let's see if this is the one. Trails 3, let me see. No. There's one in here that I put some turbulent displacement on it. Yeah, this is it. Get it so I can animate. So now it's all kind of wavy and
yeah,
looking all kind of weird. And then let me turn this off. So this is what it looks like for just those animations with the turbulent displacement on it. See if this will animate here. So it sort of gives it a smoke trail vibe. And then I took some particles. This is the Trapcode particular. What did I do to this? I think it's just, let me turn this one off. So it's just a bunch of particles here that are kind of spitting out.
Yeah.
Again, this felt a little too uniform. And so I put a choker on top of it, and it's a choker kind of blends it into this like gooey looking, like almost some kind of weird blobby type deal. Almost like it blends it together. So that ended up being that little piece there. Those kind of trail off and die off. And then, let's see. Then I had these letters separated. Again, these are shape layers, so I can make these super big and I'm not losing any quality. Because it's basically like vector layers inside of Illustrator, so I can make them as big as I want. But then just moved my... Let's see if it'll pop up here. There it goes. I moved my anchor point so that I could do a little animation to the letters. Kind of bounces. And I also have a camera that is sort of flying out from that. But as a basic example of moving anchor points is you get this little crosshair here with pretty much any layer you put in. I hit Y on the keyboard and I would put it in the corner, just drag it down there, and then go to my little parameters inside of the layer, S for scale. I can scale this down, it'll scale from that point. And typically I would move ahead a few frames. Let's see, let's do then almost there's tons of little presets that I don't ever use, which I should, to like automate this kind of stuff. But I just I do it the same thing every time. I would probably save myself hours work if I would like download some of those preset packs. But I would go like 104, and then I'd move ahead a couple frames. And then I would do like 98%, somewhere around there. Move ahead a couple more frames, like 101. So basically closing the gap in a little bit every time. And then maybe a tad bit more to like 99.5. Put easy ease keyframe on that. And pops up. Then I would do the same thing with the rotation. Is this guy in here.
Yeah.
Maybe it goes 8 to -6 to, telling you like you don't already know this. There's like bang.
Yeah, a little bounce.
Yeah. All right, so, and then it ends up with the full logo.
Yeah, it's really like kind of breaking out all those little sort of elements.
Yeah.
And then animating all of those in a unique way to sort of get this, like dynamic animation out of everything. Yeah. So now you have, and it's it speaks to the logo a bit too, because it's it's playful. It's a kids ministry.
Yeah, but if I was gonna, their church logo is just this little guy down here.
Yeah.
So if I was gonna, I would take that as an EPS, turn that into a shape layer, and then I would end up with this here. Oops, let's see. Probably should. I think I have some. Yeah. So you could go into all these little shapes. Once you do a shape layer, it's going to break it up into a bunch of little pieces.
Yeah.
You're going to find all those pieces under contents, and it breaks up in all these little groups and stuff, which can be a bit of a headache. But you can go in. I would maybe fade those buttons in and out. But it's a shape layer, so again, I can scale the mess out of it and not lose any quality.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, nerd stuff.
Yeah.
What are you here for?
No, yeah, but Chaz asked the question. He's having issues with importing a PSD file with shape layers, and then breaking that up into inside of After Effects. So I wanted to kind of show him something really quick. Basically, to answer your question, Chaz, like
Let me
that's
throw your screen out there.
that's probably not the way to go. Mainly because I don't know that Photoshop can translate its shape layers inside of After Effects and have it be vector based, per se. Because basically, what you're saying is you have a Photoshop file, and then you go and you create your shape layer. So you save this, and then you bring it into After Effects, but it's gonna give you just layers with masks on them. But these, if you were to basically turn off this mask, it's basically a shape layer with a mask on it. So this is like technically not like vectorized. It's a raster at this point, because of your mask. So to answer your question, yeah, it's like there's sort of no workaround going from Photoshop into After Effects and kind of keeping those shape layers the same. But if you're able to use Illustrator, I would recommend a plugin called Overlord, which is kind of amazing. It's basically like you can kind of create any shape inside of Illustrator and just send it to After Effects. And I can kind of show you how it works a little bit. It's like you click a button and opens up After Effects, and then it'll just create all of your shape layers in there. It's like sort of this automated process. Let me see if I can show you really quick. So I have Illustrator on here. So let's just kind of create some dummy shapes. Maybe some red ones here. So I'm going to go square. Give me a star. And then give me a little circle here. Right. So I have it docked over here on my, I guess my face is on it. Maybe I'll put it right here. Yeah, so I have this dock over here, so I can select whichever one I want, and these kind of mean different things. This one says basically push selection to AE. So if I do that, it's basically gonna pull up my After Effects project into the comp that I had selected, and then create a shape layer on here. And it's like exactly the same thing. Essentially, yeah, however After Effects creates a shape and however Illustrate creates a shape, they're essentially the same thing. It's just how each software is interpreting those things. And this Overlord script basically is like the bridge between the two. So if you have a lot of shape layers that you want to be able to animate, I'd suggest like maybe putting it in Illustrator and doing it this way, because so I can kind of just click it over, and then it's just creating all of the shapes in here, and it's like one-to-one. Like this is exactly how it is on your Illustrator file. It's exactly how it is in After Effects, and then you would have like basically every control that you kind of get with After Effects when it comes to animating all of those things, which is pretty sweet. So to answer your question, really, like shape layers in Photoshop and going in After Effects is just how it is. If you wanted, maybe there's a script out there that you could find that maybe it'll do like copy like mask from your shape layer, your Photoshop shape layer into an After Effects one. I'd recommend going to AE Scripts. They have a ton of stuff on here, and maybe they have something that's similar to that, that's Photoshop based, that you could take a look into. But yeah, AE Scripts is really good. A lot of their stuff is pretty affordable. It's depending on what plugin you wanna or script you wanna get. There's a lot of good stuff on here for sure.
Yeah, that's where I need to get like some of those preset, like doing easy ease and things like that. Like I still use Graph Editor, and I've just never dove into it, and I don't know why I don't, but I don't.
Yeah, I have this Motion 2 here. I don't know if you can see it on my screen.
Yeah.
I think your face is on it. Hang on, let me.
Oh man.
Oh boy.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. So Motion 2. I mean, they have some different presets on here that you can select, but I use it for just like kind of easing animation. So if I go down here, you know, and I do this, so like right now it's just basically, oh, that's
robotic
like,
kind of.
yeah, hang on, let me move this really close. Right, just your typical like left to right.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if you use Motion 2, this is an older version. I have a newer one now that the panel looks a little bit better. But yeah, you could essentially just use these dials to kind of finesse your curves.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, you know, you have something a little bit better. It's basically like a shortcut to going in here and then
Graph editor, right? Yeah.
yeah, doing the graph editor. Like, so if I have these selected and I'm just changing these up here, and you can see it down here that it's changing it accordingly. So it's good, like, if you sort of have a set, you know, ease in and ease out, and you want to apply it also to a bunch of other layers, you could essentially, you know, like duplicate this guy. Let's go back here. You know, if I'm also doing, you know, the same animation, I could then select all of these and just like clicking these two things here, it applied the same way the curve is being applied to the previous one. Now you have it sort of saved right there that you can kind of just.
Oh, nice.
And then they have like sort of these other ones kind of pre-built. I generally don't really use them, but you know, I'm sure they're pretty sweet. I just haven't gotten around to.
Chaz, a while ago, I did it. I was in your boat a little bit. I was kind of frustrated with, you know, I would make something in Photoshop and drag it in After Effects, and like all the clipping mask and layer masks and stuff would get all screwed up, and my blending modes would be all messed up. I got kind of frustrated with it, and so I ended up making a tutorial. It might be helpful for you. Oh, jeez. Can I just reply and not have a start stream? Maybe not. I guess I'll go down there. But I just kind of went through. I built a bunch of different little Photoshop scenarios, and then did a tutorial showing how, you know, shape layers and clipping mask and things like that affect the design. So I just posted that link to you. So that might be helpful if you have the time to go through it.
Yeah, man.
I want to go back real quick to here. Finish out this little animation thing. So if you were like just go and even talking about the graphic editor or graph editor that people just probably don't know about, if you're new to After Effects and you want to animate a logo, you know, a lot of people would say like, I'm gonna mess with After Effects. I'm gonna learn what a keyframe is, and then I've got my logo in here. I've learned what a keyframe is, and I've got a position. I'm gonna set a position here, so it's gonna end, you know, at 2 seconds, and then I'm gonna drag it in. It's gonna kind of slide in, you know, and then you get this number, and it just looks terrible. So like, how can you elevate that to kind of take it to the next level without stressing yourself out with After Effects? So if you get this far and you're like, I know there's something more and I don't know what it is, I would say the graph editor is your next step. For me, I would just highlight these keyframes that I made, and if you don't know, can't find your keyframes, you can click your layer and hit U, and it'll show you pretty much anything that you have made a keyframe for. Hit U maybe a couple times. Highlight those, and then you can right click and do Easy Ease. Go to Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. I set up a little shortcut, just the number 1, just because I use it all the time. And then that makes it a little bit smoother. Kind of slows down. But if you go to this little button here, this graph editor, and stretch this out, so basically it's saying I'm going to go very, very fast, and then I'm going to go very slow. I'm going to start slowing down early and come to a creeping crawl. So it kind of flies in and comes to a stop, and it looks a little bit more on purpose and professional. so you can tighten that up even more. Then I would probably go a step further and say, get your logo, go to this toggle switches and modes, get this little 3D cube, make it a 3D logo or a 3D layer by turning this little button on here with that 3D cube.
Why don't you move your little...
Oh, my face.
Yeah, your face.
Yeah, give me a heads up because I can't see that. Which one's my screen? This one? There we go. So, toggle switches and modes will give you a few different options. You have motion blur and adjustment layer, and this 3D cube, that's going to make it a 3D layer. That just means now you can move it in Z space and you can rotate it, on the Y-axis, and it sort of is this 3D layer. Don't ever do this. This looks silly. Don't do that. Make it feel bigger and more tangible. But I would make it a 3D layer. I would set my position to right where I want it to land, and then I would come all the way back here to 0. And I probably would push it. I'd put my mouse right on top of that blue arrow to get that Z, and I would just drag it until it's off the screen. You might want to adjust it to where it doesn't cross. Maybe come this way so I'm not going right between those letters. And then push a little bit more Z space there. Oops, there we go. And now I'd apply that same principle with the graph editor. Highlight those, right click, keyframe resistant easy ease, and then keep those highlighted. Click that graph editor. Drop this down here. And now it's going to fly in fast and go very slow. So, you export that, throw it on the end of your live stream, and your logo now kind of looks kind of nice.
Yeah.
Next thing I would probably do to make that a little more interesting is do an adjustment layer. So adjustment layers, it's just like an empty layer. Go to layer, new, adjustment layer. And you could do this with a camera, but we're not going to get into that right now. But I would put adjustment layer here. Do something simple like go to effect, go to blur and sharpened. Do like fast blocks blur or something. And then I would set a keyframe so it's almost like it's coming into focus. So right now, your effects are going to be up here in this window here that I'm hiding. Let's see. So the effect's going to pop up here, this fast box blur. And now I can blur it out. And it's going to blur basically every layer that is below the adjustment layer. So if I'd set my keyframe to the blur radius there, hit you on the keyboard so I can see it. So probably here I wanted to come into focus, so I'm going to pull this back down here, and I'm going to set that to 0. So now it goes from 11 to 0. And let's maybe use that as well. So now it looks a little bit nicer.
Throw some motion blur on there too.
Oh yeah. So motion blur, you have your church logo. I'm going to turn on the motion blur button. And then it has to be on globally there. It does take a little bit longer to render, but we'll give it a little bit more realistic look.
Yeah.
If I turn this off, you probably can see it even better. Yeah. That kind of blurs it anyways. Cool.
Yeah, man.
If anybody's joining us now or jumped in, don't know what we're doing, we're just answering design questions and playing around with ideas and helping you out. So if there's something you're working on that you're stumped on, or something you've seen us make that you're curious of how we made it, there's questions about our company and what we offer, or what's all involved in our projects or our website or whatever, please shoot those questions to us. I'm going to close this out for now. But one thing I would do before I switch is, I would probably put my church logo in its own composition. So Shift Command C, I'll call this logo. And I think all the animation will stay. Let's see. Oh, it didn't. I would have all my animations on this composition. So for instance, I'd make that a 3D layer. Oop. P.
Why don't you move your face?
Oh, thank you. There we go. So I would put it into its own composition, Shift Command C, and you can make it a 3D layer. And then you can hit P, let's select that right there. Let's make a keyframe. And this is my logo. So then I would animate in there. And so if you had, if your logo was in the process of being made or updated, you could just come in here and drop in your new logo, assuming this didn't have any keyframes on it. You could drop in your new logo. So let's say we did this ordinary brand was your new logo. Anything in here is going to do what your composition is going to do. So, so now you just updated your logo. One thing to keep in mind, though, with After Effects that I really didn't discover until probably a few years ago was this little, let me go back here, this little continuously rasterize button, because I would always wonder, like, I would have to make, like, for instance, logos, I'd have to make them like really, really big if I was going to zoom in or zoom out, because they would get pixelated when I would do this, and I couldn't ever figure out why. So if I turn this off, you're going to see it almost like rasterizes it right there. And I'm in full res, and it's all sorts of pixelated. But it basically, this button will sort of go down the rabbit hole of compositions as long as this little button, I'm not covering up, am I? No. This little star button is clicked on, is it will, I guess, interpret what kind of layers inside of this one, which is a shape layer. So shape layers, again, can be scaled up and down. It's not gonna smooth out your JPEGs or anything, but it will read how big your layers are inside that composition and match them to it. So, and now I can get all up in it and not be as crisp as possible.
Right.
It's all just data at that point. So, yeah, I didn't learn that for a long time, and had a lot of pixelated projects. For those of you that don't know, Pedro is much better at this than I am, and taught me a lot of stuff before I even started. So
I'd say that I'm probably more technically minded, but you're just a fantastic designer. So I'm still catching up to you.
Oh. I always think about you. This is gonna get real sappy. I always think about when I remember sitting in your room and you taught me how to make a vignette in After Effects. Every time I make it, I remember.
That's hilarious.
Let's see. Do a tutorial on the upcoming Revelation series. Don't know where you'd begin to make something like that. You are absolutely right. That would be a long video, maybe a series, but
probably like a nice breakdown of.
Yeah. I can open up some of those projects, but if I gave the screen to you if you wanted to do anything.
I guess I just wanted to. I don't know. I've sort of been seeing this trend a lot that I find it kind of neat. I don't know. Sort of this idea of let's see here if I can gather my thoughts. I just have this Zoom card, I guess. I guess zooming, it's going to be a new normal, Mm-hmm. But I really liked, let's see if I can maybe show something here. Hibbity, habbity, habbity. I guess let's see if I can create a new one. I'm not sure what I'm trying to do. It's basically, I just had this revelation of making some things pop a little bit more. It was something super simple, but I can't. Let's see if I can. Let me see here. I guess my point was, I had these Zoom words here, and I just wanted them to be apparent a little bit, but I didn't know whether they should be white or something. Let me see. Let me see here if I can. Hmm. All right. I think I'm a little lost here. Hang on.
Peter sent his logo, so I'm gonna pull it into Epler. Peter Epler sent his logo, so I'm gonna pull that into After Effects in a bit. And
Okay.
animate it.
So let me see. All right. I'll start fresh here.
While you're thinking about it, what is anybody using anything for Easter content wise or something different? Got any Easter ideas? I'd love to hear them because I have no idea really what folks are doing. I'd love to see what are you doing the drive-in thing? Are you know, is your state allowing that? All that good stuff. I'm kind of curious if you have any thoughts on it. So,
So I guess I was just like playing around with doing sort of the silhouette thing here. Let me just show you. Come on. What's going on here? So if I had just some text like this. Go ahead and duplicate. Oh my gosh, dude, this is... Alright, and then these guys, there is a outline version. Let's group this. So I was like playing around with this design, kind of having this stroked text. But initially I was going to maybe do like, I don't know, just like a color overlay of sorts. But and then I thought like, maybe what's a different way that I can still call that text out. So I did this, which I thought was really fun. I basically like made, I duplicated this sort of background texture here, and I put it on top of it, and then I created a clipping mask out of it, right? So, but right now it's kind of faint, and you really see it. But I just did this, like I clicked on it, and then just sort of rotated it a bit. And then, so you're basically getting, a rotated background, but it's like, it's like the inverse of whatever you're seeing. So it's, like, it's just like a nice little way of, I guess, like stylizing text that, I don't know. Sometimes I have, I sort of browse online through different.
Yeah, it's like those pictures a lot you see on social media, of like the picture of a shoreline and a cross, but they've just shifted the image, so it's basically the same thing, just shifted.
Like the dual exposure stuff.
Not even that. Like I'll see if I can find an example, but because there's a lot of them out there. Let's see if I can find it, but I think you kind of did the same thing.
Yeah, I just have this like, it's like it's one of those moments that something just clicks, in your mind, and you're just like, why didn't I think of this before?
Happy accidents. That's pretty much my entire process. It's just like happy accidents. I click buttons until it sort of looks cool.
Yeah.
Can't really find an example, but
what is everybody doing? Are people sort of doing like Zoom Hangouts, or is your church sort of pushing for that? I know that our Bible study, like our young families Bible study, we're doing like Zoom calls on I think Sunday nights or something like that, and everybody kind of just joins in, and we have a little bit of like a devotional Bible study kind of a thing.
Is
Yeah, I
there
just
like a
didn't.
number limit on that you can do?
Yeah, I think depending on the tier of whatever you sign up for Zoom, you can do like 45 people, 100 people. I think there's like different tiers that you can sort of subscribe to, I guess. But yeah, we all just like kind of gather around, whatever. And even what's cool, like they can even break out into groups. Like sort of our small group leader will sort of like do his spiel in the beginning, and then later on he's like, I'm gonna assign you guys to groups, and you can kind of, it's almost like you're kind of breaking out into your own separate group, and you're talking about whatever was discussed. You know what I mean? Which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
But yeah, all inside of Zoom. It seems like Zoom is taking over nowadays.
Yeah, it's out of control. We played some. I'm gonna switch over to my screen. We played some games with some friends of ours online the other day, and it was pretty fun.
Oh yeah.
Like play through phone and whatever. So Peter, no, yeah, he sent out his logo, and he did send it as a PNG, but he said he has it in an EPS format, so I'm gonna wait on that. But if you end up in this situation and you have a PNG, luckily it's somewhat high res that it might work. So I would probably just send this straight to Illustrator. I should probably just open Illustrator and do my best to just do a live trace of it. Most of the time, you can just replicate the text if you know the font, but we will just do it inside of. Oh, I'm actually already inside of Illustrator, so let me go here, right click, open in Illustrator. So I would just leave it as is, and I would go to Image Trace here, preview, and once you click preview, it kind of does it for you. But I think oh boy, oh no, I think you can. This is where people at Illustrator are going to get mad at me. Let's see, I've moved the mode to color. Let's see if that does it. Oh no.
He said he has a PSD available. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's probably the same thing. But this looks fine. So this is traced, and as long as the quality's decent, this will work. So I would ideally have this as a text layer, but at this point, I think I click ignore white as well, make sure there's no white on there. And it's going to do its thing again. Might close this down for now. Stop the computer from exploding. I think that's right. This little thing's right. Let's assume it is. So I would, everything looks pretty good. I would then make outlines of this. So I'd go to Object, expand maybe? Type? No, I think expand. Expand. Hit OK. And now I have outlines of everything. And so I would just save this as, I'm going to just call it Peter logo. Yes. You can keep it an Illustrator file, I think, but I just like to make it EPS. Just Peter and save. So then I would go into After Effects. I'll probably keep this somewhat simple, but I would probably looking at this, I don't want to do anything weird like rotate this cross or anything like that, or yeah, I want to try to keep the integrity of the brand as close as possible, but still give it a little something a little interesting. So once this opens up,
Yeah, that sort of that block where the cross is, sort of like looks like an iris, like a camera iris,
Yeah.
There might be something cool to do with that.
Yeah, if you were to do that, I mean, would you just maybe move the layers in and then pull them out?
Yeah, you can almost.
Or you'd almost have to recreate those pieces to have it animate like an iris.
Yeah.
But just for time's sake, I'm gonna see how fast I can. Oops. See how fast I can.
You can almost kind of the same way that you did the previous logo of it zooming out in.
But so I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna have all the little pieces sort of in different 3D space and slowly come together, I think.
Oh yeah.
That's my thought. So I got my EPS file. I'm gonna drag it in here, drop it in here like this, and it puts it in as big as it's gonna be. But that stresses me out, so I'm gonna make just make my composition a little bigger. And see, the pixel size here is super small, but if I go down here, right click, and do create shapes, for instance, actually, if I just, as an example, if I try to scale this up, it falls apart. But if I right click, create shapes from layer, now it's nice and crisp. It makes me feel so much better. I can delete that EPS for now. So I would probably, typically, I like to break these apart to different layers so I can see them. So I turn this off. I'd probably delete the all these letters. Just kind of clicking through to figure out which ones are in the group. Can you just like click and drag? No. I know you can. Is it G? Nope.
For what now?
I want to like select, like click and drag, select just certain layers.
You first have to select your shape layer inside of your layer there, and then you're going to be able to like select one of them.
Like this. Yeah. And then I can click and drag? No. See, I want to like click and just select these over here, but...
Yeah. Well, that's a group, so twirl that down one more time. Select a path. Yep.
If I delete. Oh no. You know what? I'm just gonna do this. Not that one. Not that one. So I'll probably just delete those. And NAS, which is right here. Delete. So let's see. I think of the easiest way to do this. I wonder if I made it. Because I would then, if I had tons of time, I would probably break these apart even more to make them all separate 3D layers. But I'm wondering if I could make them. I'd have to do like, I guess I'd have to like rotoscope some mask. But if I made one 3D animation, I think that might work. That might work. Hang on. Let's see. Zoom out a little bit. Oh. I could really embarrass myself here. We'll see. This is this is just because the cool thing is I can go out of this composition and it doesn't really matter if I use that continue to rasterize, it'll recognize that there's other pieces over here. So if I did this, made my little animation. Comes in this way, then I would maybe just fade the words in, just something simple. But now that I have that animation set, let's see. Let's throw this into another comp, see if this actually works. I'm gonna make 1020 by 1080. Hope we're not boring everybody. Hopefully you're learning something. Thanks for hanging out with us. This is sort of a test run of something we might want to do in the future. If not, then let us know. So for instance, here you can see it getting cut off right there, but if I click this layer, it recognizes those pieces. So, doom. But it's very big, so I'm going to scale this down to fit here. Let's see. Here we go. So then I would probably go into here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now I'm just going to go into these and turn off those colors. So everything but 10. And I'm gonna while I do this, so then I'm just gonna go through and then just basically isolate these colors, and then it'll animate separately. So I'll come back once I'm done turning off these layers and turning them back on. So I'm gonna switch to you, Pedro, so I don't bore everybody. Get you on the spot.
Oh man.
What have you created lately that you were stoked about that maybe you can break down or something?
Yeah, let me
And I'm gonna get to that Revelations. I'm gonna show you a little scene in it before I'm done.
Yeah, let me pull something up really quick. Did the live is the live paused or glitched out?
Oh. don't know.
Let me see if nope, I think we might be going still. I think I just wanted to show my
We're still going?
yeah, I think we are. I think it might be just my browser here. Let's see. See if I can pull something out here. Yeah, recently I wanted to sort of do a Spanish version of the Jesus is King um, series that we have, and I just wanted to sort of show that a little bit. But yeah, like, cool thing about all of these is just it's basically a bunch of text, right? That you can kind of just go in and sort of change it to whatever you want it to be. So in this case, Spanish. But I guess in some of these projects I wanted to show a few things that kind of make it sort of cool. Especially like, and if you notice, there's this sort of overlaying texture that's sort of being animated on top. Maybe I can kind of just recreate that a little bit and show how that was done. So yeah, let's do that. Let's do this. And then let me pull up some of the assets that I might need. Oh, I know something. That's it's one of those tricks that I sort of like blew my mind when I saw someone do it, and it's actually in Photoshop. So let me just kind of do that really quick. Like, did you know? Let me just close some of this stuff off. Did you know that you can actually just copy images from, like, say, a browser and just like paste it in Photoshop without having to download anything? Like, for instance, why don't we go to like Unsplash or something, and then maybe I just searching for texture. Let's see. Sure, why not? Like, so I have this guy here. Big photo.
Mm-hmm.
If I just like copy image, and then inside of Photoshop, I can just paste it, which I had no idea. Yeah.
And it's
So-
it's the high res version. It's not like a.
I mean, no. I mean, it's
It's the
well,
same.
it is-
It's the same one as if you would download it.
It's the same one as I'm seeing on screen, which I think in
Yeah.
Unsplash it's like a downgraded version. So yeah, you would still have to sort of like go and download an actual, like the actual full res.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like big enough, right? And then
Just maybe a little compression on it that no one's
yeah.
ever going to notice.
So if you're sort of iterating through, a bunch of stuff, it's easy to sort of like kind of go and like start grabbing stuff and putting it in. Maybe you're playing around with it, and just taking some stuff off or whatever.
Oh.
That was something I learned a while back.
How about that?
But let's go. Okay, so let's go to After Effects.
I can switch back if you need me to.
Yeah, go for it, and then I'll build this, and then I can kind of show what I.
Oh, Ryan says he's doing taking the Christmas trivia thing that we have on our previous page and making an Easter one. Please, oh man, please share that when you're done with it. I'd love to see it. and share and share. All right. So back in here with Peter's logo, and like I said, I was made it the shape layer as one big, large just logo, and then I made a 3D layer logo and have it sort of flying in this way. So now what I would do is I'm going to ignore these words for now. I'm just going to turn these off for now and focus on these. So all of these have the same keyframe, same position keyframe on it, just this fly in. So all I want to do now is just sort of offset these a little bit. So I'm just going to I want to do the cross last. So I'm going to push this maybe down here and then just scatter these randomly. Let's see, maybe something like that. I just want to make sure that none of it's moving at the same time. So somewhere on here. So let's see what that looks like. So instead of having to animate those one by one and do it together. I don't like this yellow one coming in by itself, and I renamed them. So I'm gonna have that one come in almost first. Cross is a little late. So now it's just the point of tweaking. These two are kind of coming in too close together, so I'm going to push this one way late. Alright, so that's close enough as an example. And then I would just I could fade in these layers here. So let's start with Catch a Can, which is a fun thing to say. So I don't want to reveal that these are broken apart. I would wait to fade it in until everything was pretty much in place, or else it might feel kind of weird. So you could just do an opacity. I would hit T on the keyboard for opacity, turn on the keyframe at this point here, maybe move it down just a tad bit, and hit this 0. I do that. And it fades in. The fade is kind of boring. I would maybe do, going back to those track matte and alpha matte things, would be to make a layer and use that as the fade in, so it sort of wipes it from left to right. So what I'm going to do is make a new layer, new solid, and keep it white. Let's do black so I can see what I'm doing. And hit OK. And so now I just have the solid layer. So I'm going to make it pretty big, something like this. And then I'm going to draw a mask on it and use this little square tool here. And with that layer selected, I click the mask button, and I can draw a mask on top of this. So I'm sort of just cutting this out a little bit. So somewhere around here, and then I'm going to hit M a few times on the keyboard to reveal the mask properties. And then I'm going to feather it a whole lot. Something like that. But I want to make sure my layer is tall enough so I'm not feathering the top of it too much, so like super wide like that. Okay, so now I can animate this. So I can do P on the keyboard, click it, and this will be like full on here. And then I'm going to move it down here all the way. And we'll do a keyframe and release ease on that as well. Maybe something like that. Just a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to take this layer, I'm going to put it on top of the Catch a Can and tell it to basically do the track matte. So I'm going to toggle switches and modes, go to the none, and say I want Catch a Can to be the Luma Matte inverted because I did black instead of white. So I'm going to do Luma Matte inverted. And so now let's see what we got. Is that not true black? Let's see. We have to do alpha matte. Why is it kind of gray? That's weird. Oh, my opacity here is low. That's right. Okay. Now let's try it. Go back to Luma Matte inverted. And let's see. Let's go to alpha map. That's not working. Okay, so there it kind of wipes in there. It's a little too fast. But there's the animation there. So then I could just duplicate this and put it on top of the NAS or NAZ and turn this layer back on and then make this an alpha matte as well. And then maybe stagger it, hit U on the keyboard, sort of stagger it just a little bit. You want to make sure your layers over here. Let's see. Animates in, fades in, and there you go. So to finalize that, to make a nice little stinger that they could use on their ending thing, I'd probably scale this down maybe a tad bit more. Alright, so now we got this nice little simple logo animation. So then, let's go another step further. Let's turn on, make it a 3D layer. And I think if I add a new camera, hit OK. And usually I do layer, new, null object. Null is just a fake layer. I'm just going to say camera movement. The only reason I do this, one, because I learned it from Video Copilot years and years and years ago. But attaching the camera with this little pick whip to the camera movement. And so now make this a 3D layer as well. So now wherever I move this null object, it's almost like a virtual tripod. It's going to move the logo, but I need to go in here. Let's see. Sure, these are 3D layers. 3D, 3D. These also might need to be 3D layers. I'm going to link these masks or maps to, so it should stay together if I move it. All right, let's see. So if I move this, now the whole thing will move. So what I would probably do, I'd probably go in here. I'd probably move all of my text animation of it fading in down a good bit. I would come in here. I would say position. And this is where I want final position to be, but at this point, right when that cross ends, I want to be right dead center here. And then this should come flying. Oh no. What did I do? Let's see. What have I done? I broke something. I'm just moving a good bit here. Let's see. Whoa, whoa! I think I broke something. At this point, undo as long as you can. Figure out what I did. Why is it so short now? Okay, something to do with my camera. I bet I don't even need it. Well, I bet I don't even need a camera. If I'm being honest. I can treat really the only time you would use a camera really is if you want to do like lens distortion, maybe focus or rack focus and stuff like that. Let's see. Lock it down here. Move this to the center, but I need my logo to be linked to my object. So wherever the null goes, my logo goes. Oops. Dead center. Keyframe.
Oh yeah.
So, but I want my camera to be all up in your, to where it feels like it's maybe flying. This would take a lot of finessing, probably. And I always hate when it does these, like, it curves it
Yeah.
for me. Oh gosh. If your layer's not like doing these weird little compensating for your turns, just turn that off. I hate that. I lived with that for so long until I learned that I could right click, go to keyframe interpolation,
Yeah.
change the spatial interpolation to linear. Okay, so then I would finesse these keyframe in the graph editor as well. Pretty good bit. Okay, so let's see. Slide over, and right there is where my text would come fading in. So I'd go back to this composition and pull these maybe back somewhere around there. Let's see what we got. Not too shabby. Looks like my cross is disappearing because my layers need to be all the way here. Should work there. There we go.
Whoop.
So going back to Pedro's my comment about your vignette, he would make a solid. You would make it black. You hit OK, and then you'd go up here to the ellipse tool, double click it, and then you go here where it says add. You go to subtract. You hit M a few times, soften that bad boy up. I typically put it at about 30% opacity, 20 to 30%, and scale it up a little bit to where it's just barely in there. And now you have a nice little ta-da!
Yeah.
Logo animated, done. Sorry, that was boring. Hopefully you learned something. I'm gonna switch over to Pedro. Should we kind of wrap it up pretty soon, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I'll just show this little thing here.
Oh, I gotta show the Revelation stuff in the book. Maybe we can.
Yeah. So if you kind of notice on our Jesus King series, it has this sort of animated texture on top, and I just wanted to kind of show you how to maybe create that. It kind of just gives a little bit of texture overall, and it kind of just like, I don't know, mushes everything together into one, and it's a nice little, it's almost like a film grain, but not really. So I just wanted to show you that. So we're here in After Effects, right? Basically, I have one texture, which is this guy here. And it looks like this. It's just some stock that I've had for a while. And so basically what you do, so we created our own composition of that same texture, which is right here. And what we're going to do, every 4 frames, we're going to move it slightly either to the right, back, whatever, scale it some. So I kind of went ahead and did it while Alex was working on his logo. So here we have this initial one. We go to the next frame. You see that we sort of just went up a little bit more. It's like we scaled it and moved it up. And then we went 4 frames later. I rotated it a bunch. I moved it to the side some. And then I went another 4 frames and did something else, right? So that basically looks like this, which is it's kind of moving around.
Yeah, stop motion kind of.
Yeah, like a stop motion type of thing. And in order to do that, you have to kind of create hold frames in After Effects. So from what Alex was doing, he would, let me just duplicate this. If all of these were just regular keyframes, if I just select all, and then boop, it would be doing, this is what it would be doing here. Let me show you. Like, it's actually interpreting from one point to the other, which is what he was doing. A hold frame is basically saying, hold here until I get to the next keyframe, and then I'm just going to go boop, like straight into the next one. So in order for you to have hold frames, you have to select your keyframes and right click, and this says toggle hold keyframe here. And then now it's going to be sort of the stop motion-y effect. Right, so I basically have that over a black, probably don't even need this black solid down here. And then you can lay this on top of whatever footage, image, and it sort of gives you this sort of look. So it's just like a level of texture that you can kind of add on top of your animations or, motion graphic pieces that you're doing, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, I do that. I use that a lot. So let me throw this back over here. I made just an After Effects project for that very reason. So I have a folder that I call compositing, and so I will import things like the countdown,
Yeah.
that paper jitter stuff, and some other things. So what I do is, and you can import an After Effects project into an you can inception the project. So I go to compositing, and I have a paper jitter thing. This probably should be a little more organized, but let my hard drive wake up. Oh. Are we still here? Someone, I think I might have lost it. Feed. If someone, if we're still live, let me know. Pedro's, there you are. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Hear me, okay?
Yeah, are we still going?
I think so. I don't know what happened on my end.
Oh, yeah, he disappeared. Anyways, we'll assume it's still going. I think it is. Okay. So somebody let me know if we are. So, yeah, I have that paper jitter folder here. Import that. So basically, I would just need to change the background if I wanted to do something different. So this is that same layer, and it's got that vibe on it. So I could take that.
Yeah, that's.
But I just already have it set up, so I could just go and replace my background piece of paper, as long as it's 1920 by 1080. But it saves me a whole lot of time. I could drop it on top of his logo, do a blending mode on it. Something like that.
Yeah.
Right, turn that way down.
Another thing that you can do, and it kind of gives a little bit of sort of an animation tone to it, if you do an adjustment layer and then you throw a posterized time on it, and then you set the like the frame rate on there to be like 12 frames per second. So it looks a little bit jittery, but it's sort of kind of goes back to like the old days of like animation principles that they used to do things in like 15 frames per second. So It kind of just gives you that little bit of a tone of like, this is animated. It's not necessarily stop motion, but it's like somewhere in between. That's really nice too.
I'm just gonna ask. I don't know why I don't just speak it, but I'll just put it in the comments. Anything else people want to know before we wrap up?
Yeah, let's see your Revelations project.
Yeah. Let me open up one more, because the one that turned out really cool, I thought, was the menorah. Hang on. I did the horns one, but the menorah one's actually really dope. Revelation menorah. Let's see. Pixel file maybe. Menorah. Let's let this open up for a sec. Thanks, Peter, for letting me use your logo as an example, and you get a free logo animation. So hopefully it's something you guys can use. Yeah, sure. All right, so let me show the final shot, and maybe I'll open it up in After Effects as well. It's fun to show sort of your raw render out of Cinema and then all the good stuff that goes on top of it to make it look like it does in After Effects. Like it looks so cool to you and you're like, oh man, this looks perfect, and then you put it in After Effects, you're like, oh holy moly. It looked like garbage before I did this. Here's the image sequence. All right, that one's still opening up. So this is the render out of Cinema 4D. See if I can like zoom in a little bit there. So these massive clouds and all kinds of lighting behind the clouds. And I will give a plug for those 3D folks out there. The pixellab.net had some what they call VDB, a VDB kind of project, or presets, whatever. Remind me what that stands for.
Volumetric
Just-
database, I think.
Nerd. Yeah, so volumetric database is what that stands for. And it's for like smoke and flames and fuel and heat and things like that. So that's what it looks like once it sort of is inside of Cinema 4D. And I'll show you that project inside of here. So this is the world I was living in. This is Cinema 4D. So if I turn my camera off and I zoom way out, this is the entire scene. And it seems so small and wimpy when you look at it like this. But I scatter these, what they call VDB files, and it's a pretty cool little pack of stuff, and then you can apply these clouds to it. I can try to do a render on my, let's see what happens. This project took forever to render, like 20 minutes per frame almost, so I had to really lean into online render farms to get it to work.
It's actually voxel database, not
Ah.
volume. I was wrong.
You
Or volumetric data blocks, whichever.